If it is not a hell yes, it is a hell no.
Love it.
So that is it. So if you are not, and recruitment, as we know, is a combination of science and art. If you're not feeling it, even if everything great is on paper, if you're feeling that there is something not quite right, well, listen to your gut and make them. It's got to be 100% hell yes. So now that's the words that we use when we're recruiting. It's like, if that person is a hell yes, bring them on board. So that it's that simple. The mistake I made was that I did not listen to my gut. I knew that person wasn't the right person for the team, but I was a little maybe desperate or overly eager to fill the role. So I went against my rule, which is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And do I beat myself up about that? No, because I think what it did was it reminded me that the things that we say are practical, like actually have practical implications. So, but also other people could see from me that even though I'm the head of people and culture, I'm allowed to make a mistake. I'm allowed to learn from that mistake. And I think it showed a great example. It was a practical example of what does happen when you do make a mistake, and not listen to your gut. So yeah, I did. I've definitely made more than one.
Welcome, Sharon, and congratulations on making the final 12 of the HR Influence Awards for 2026. What a great achievement among so many worthy and well-rounded nominees. And thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Rudy. It's nice to be here.
So Sharon is the Chief People Officer at OzHarvest, Australia's most recognised food rescue charity, managing a workforce spanning from drivers to warehouse staff to corporate teams and volunteers aligned to a single mission. Impressively, she's developed a volunteer-to-paid pipeline model, keen to learn about that, and a purpose activation framework that others in the not-for-profit sector reference as best practice. So quite the achievements there, and I'm keen to learn more about your journey, Sharon. So if you're ready, let's kick it off.
Let's go.
Righto. So Sharon, tell me about your career path. How did you end up leading people function at one of Australia's most recognised charities?
Great question. Sometimes I really wonder whether it's by design or by luck, and I think it really is a bit of both, right? So I think I am here now in the right place, and I landed at the right time. So I joined 2 weeks before COVID started in February 2020. And before that, though, I had a diverse career through operations, then moving into people management, then moving into human resources through a variety of industries, being in the medical, pharmaceutical, hospitality. And then I moved into the not-for-profit space and had a wonderful job with in the children's disability sector, which was great. From that, though, I really found a desire to be having really meaningful impact with people and planet. And so this position was offered to me to come and apply for, and meeting our founder at the time, Ronnie Khan, an instant connection, which was lovely. And I got to join this beautiful organisation. So I feel pretty handpicked, which is nice. And now I'm responsible for handpicking all of the people that come to volunteer and work with us as well. So it's an absolute privilege to have this role.
Really love it. And interesting, you're coming from an operations background. You didn't start in HR. So do you feel like that was a benefit? And if so, what did it bring? Or do you feel like, I really wish I should have just started in HR?
No, I think it's an absolute benefit. Now I do. At the time, as I said, I don't think it was really by design. And I think it helps me work within organisations with stakeholders to understand that they have things on their plate as well that are not necessarily HR focused. So understanding that HR things may not be primary or central to their day's work, and understanding that and being able to navigate that in a realistic and practical way, I think has helped me do my job well.
I really like it, right? Because I think culture can be such a nebulous, highfalutin topic. If you think about operational people, they are pretty practical, right? So how did you bring essentially something so, I guess, almost academic into the practical realm in building culture at OzHarvest?
I don't think culture is academic. Culture is everything. So it's around you. It's how you feel. It's your experience and how you experience the place in which you work. So I don't think it is academic at all. Some people might not be able to articulate
Mhm.
what it feels like, but it certainly isn't academic. I think it is actually very, very practical, because culture is the sum of all the micro decisions that you make every day. Everything that you do represents the culture that you want to be developing. And when I joined, the culture here is just a remarkable one. And my job wasn't to build something great, it's to maintain and nurture and foster and protect that culture. As we move from a founder-led organisation to now as a new CEO, well, I think I have to stop saying new because he's been with us for 2 years, but having that with a very different mindset around how businesses are best led, and having both the founder and the CEO working alongside each other here is just an absolute thrill, and brings two very different perspectives into the culture space, which can be challenging, but also out of challenges come the best results, right? Different perspectives and things make the decisions we make even better.
I really love it. I think, like you said, culture is everything. Culture is the micro movements, the micro decisions. I really like that approach. So
Mm.
in terms of OzHarvest itself, what drew you to working for OzHarvest
Mm.
specifically? Was it the mission? Was it the challenge? Was it something else?
No, no, well, I like yellow. No. So it was definitely the mission was one thing. So what I want to do with my valuable time, everyone's time is valuable, and I want to spend it doing something worthwhile and meaningful. But also I want to do it with people that I really care about. I want to do it with a really strong leadership team, and have a really great boss. So whether that be a CEO or a founder, and tick, 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 all of that here at OzHarvest. Joy the company, the people I work with. They're compassionate and kind and high performing and deeply, deeply caring for the planet and our people. So that was probably the reason that I chose to come here. I'll let you in on a little secret. I had another offer at the same time, and I did go home and say to my kids, I've got these two offers. What do I do? And they did say, "Oh, OzHarvest is cooler." So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was really what really prompted me.
Love it. And if you think about your time at OzHarvest at the moment, pre-COVID, I can't believe it. What a journey, or what a condition walking into. That would have been quite challenging, right?
It was really challenging, yeah, as everybody would attest to.
And so over the last 5, 6 years, what is the achievement that means the most to you personally that you've achieved there?
As I said, with my this role is the best job I've ever had, so I just love it. And choosing one particular highlight is really difficult, I think. I think personally for me, what I have enjoyed the most, I've got a team of fabulous people, experience partners, of people and culture assistants, of learning and development managers, of volunteer managers, of safety managers, and building that team of really high performing professional experts around me, and also nurturing the careers of people that are entering the role, entering the workforce. So we've had quite a few people where this role is their first role in HR,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
being able to nurture and grow those people and nourish them in their positions, introduce them to the world of HR in the way that I think about HR, which might be different to others, but being able to bring them in on the journey and get them excited about the work we do has been really something that I've just loved.
Taking them under your wing, bringing them
Yeah.
into the fold and developing. I love it.
Mm.
So speaking of that, you actually manage quite a diverse workforce. Like I said at the introduction,
Yeah.
it's drivers, warehouse staff, your corporate team,
Mm.
graduates, like you just said, thousands of volunteers.
Mm.
So with that incredible mix of not only
Mm.
roles but personalities, how do you create a cohesive culture across such a bunch of
Mm.
diverse roles and experiences?
Yeah. So I think key to that is our purpose. So we talk about our purpose every single day. We talk about our values every single day. We recruit to our values. So we have for example, we have 187 drivers that are in our vans around the country rescuing food, but they're not just drivers, they're ambassadors. And we don't necessarily think that a good driving record, while it's certainly very, very helpful and contributes, is not the key reason that we employ, we handpick them for the roles. The key reason is that they resonate with our values. They are aligned with our purpose. They're getting out of bed every day to make a difference and loving what they do. That's the way that we speak our culture across all of the different cohorts that we have through the business. It's one team, one dream. We're all here in our uniforms, wearing our yellow or black T-shirts. We're all here for one reason. We've got a lot of communication channels through the team, through the organisation as well, and we're sharing our success and our stories and our impact daily and celebrating what we do every single day. So, our last survey showed that 93% of our staff feel incredibly connected to our purpose. So, and then the rest of them are very connected. So
Well, it sounds like you're doing something right in the recruitment process, right? Because I love that you just said, a driver can have a driver's license, but at the end of the day, we've all got to focus on the same light on the hill, right? We've all got to be facing the same direction. So if I think about your recruitment process and who you bring into the business can either dilute your company DNA, the culture, or can strengthen it. So how do you make sure that who you bring in the recruitment process actually builds on what you've already got?
Yeah, we've been very firm on the protection of our culture here through our hiring managers, all of our leaders that are bringing somebody else into the team. And we simplify it with this: if it is not a hell yes, it is a hell no.
Love it.
So that is it. So if you are not, and recruitment, as we know, is a combination of science and art. If you're not feeling it, even if everything great is on paper, if you're feeling that there is something not quite right, well, listen to your gut and make them. It's got to be 100% hell yes. So now that's the words that we use when we're recruiting. It's like, if that person is a hell yes, bring them on board. So that it's that simple.
I love it because, it has to evoke a certain feeling in you. I really like that. And so you've built a volunteer paid pipeline at OzHarvest. Walk us through what that means, how it works. How did you get it started?
So it happened quite organically, and it continues to be built upon as we become more structured in the way that we manage our volunteers. And we're really pleased at the moment that we've just run a great big implementation of a new platform to make registering with us even easier, app-based, getting onto ships easy. So we're making the experience, it's just seamless for our volunteers now. So that's something that they told us over the years, and so that's what we've delivered on in the last 18 months. So that's a piece of work that we're really proud of. Volunteers are a varied demographic. We've got people who have finished work and they want to give back. We've got people who have finished work and want to stay connected in some way. We've got volunteers who have created friendship groups amongst their volunteers, and they go away on holidays together now. We've also got people who are international students coming across to find more connection in the locations in which they are living. Or we have young people, or not even age, people who join us with an intention of building some skills and potentially using the volunteer door as a way to get in to potentially put them in the running for roles that come up at OzHarvest. We're very, very committed that any position that becomes available, whether it is created or we need it filled, is advertised internally to our people and our volunteers first. So we have 3,000 fabulous volunteers, so we advertise with them first. And then if we don't have anybody who is interested or best fit for the role, then we go to market.
I think it's really interesting. You said the way you're describing it is something that we've seen across pretty much all of our finalists, which is something moving HR beyond what is traditionally a cost center, but really seeing it as an opportunity center. Is that something that just comes naturally to you, or is it something that the business asked you to do? Because it is quite a different lens, right? Seeing HR as the police versus you're actually creating better business opportunities, better retention, essentially better work environment for your staff, but also for the business rather than well, you didn't follow this policy, you didn't follow this
Oh,
procedure.
1,000%. When it is my belief that we should not be seen as the police, and when I got here, I was very clear with my very tiny team at the time that that was not our role. Our role was to go out for the first 6 months of our team being created. Our position was just around creating really strong relationships through the business, earning trust, getting to understand the business, working alongside people to understand what their needs are, closely with all of the people. When I arrived, there was 130 staff, and now we have over 400 staff. And when I arrived, listening to those staff, what was very clear and unanimous was they wanted opportunities, learning and development. So we now have a rock star learning and development manager here that creates bespoke learning and development opportunities for our leaders and for other people in the business. So we've done that as an offering for our people to thank them for all the tireless work that they give us and their time. So yeah, that lens is to have HR as valued business partners as opposed to a service that does the tough stuff for people. We're shifting that lens and walking alongside of our leaders to ensure that they
It's
can be.
kind of that truster advisor mentality, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So your purpose activation framework, as I said in the introduction, has been
Mm.
referenced as best practice. What is it, and why do you think it's resonating so widely in the NFP sector and OzHarvest itself?
Mm, mm. Well, everyone wants a purpose, don't they? I mean, everyone wants a purpose. And so I think it works well for us here because it's actually genuine. We're not creating something that is, contrived. We have lots of work to do. We've all got big jobs here. We've got big problems to solve, like food insecurity is enormous in Australia. And we know that the work we do impacts many individuals every single day. And so we're committed to that. So being able to ensure that we bring those passionate people on board is certainly one thing. And then just working and talking about our purpose, as I said, sharing the stories. We did introduced something a couple of years ago called our purpose program. And so every day we've budgeted so that once a year you can take a day out of your department and go and work in another department to understand what they do and to get a taste of the impact that team has. So last week we had somebody from finance who was interested in joining P&C for the day to see what we do. I think we blew her brain. He said, I wasn't aware of everything that you had to do and deal with every day, and she had to use her brain differently that day, which was really interesting. And I've booked my purpose day for 2 weeks' time, and I'm going to sit alongside our food rescue coordinators, who are the people behind the scenes who organise all of our vans on the roads in lifetime, sort of like our traffic controllers, air traffic controllers, but on the roads. And I'm going to sit with them and see what they do because to me, it seems like a dance where they're making sure that, you can pick up and drop off and ensure that you go out empty, you come back empty, and you've rescued 1,000 kilos of food and distributed it to where it needs to be. It's quite the orchestra of people out there that have to be manoeuvred well.
I love it. I love the whole purpose part, and I think that really fits in quite nicely with my next question, which
Oh,
is
okay.
around if you were advising people leaders in the corporate sector wanting to be more purpose driven, be more purpose led, where would you tell them to start?
Well, I think every corporate exists for a reason, doesn't it? So I know some of it might seem like it's about making money, but that's not the only reason they exist. There is a reason that banks are there, and there is a reason that, financial advisors are there. And so I think what you do is you ask the why are we here? And maybe one why is not enough. Maybe you need to go 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 whys. And we use that model here, the 5 whys, to get down and understand things more deeply. So asking 5 whys about why you're here should certainly surface that it's not just about making money. That's just an outcome of what you do. What you really do is support people to make better decisions or help people live the life they want to be living. There's a lot of purpose in our everyday work, no matter where you are, I think.
I really like that. And asking the people there why they are there. I think that is
Yeah.
pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that. Okay, I'm going to ask you a maybe a challenging question,
All
maybe a
right.
confronting
Bring
question.
it on.
Okay, have you ever made a bad hire, and what did it teach you about people and culture?
Yeah. I did make a bad hire and I made it into my team and I shared that through the organisation because it was very visible that the head of people and culture recruited the wrong person. But I thought, what a great learning opportunity for that. The real thing, the mistake I made was that I did not listen to my gut. I knew that person wasn't the right person for the team, but I was a little maybe desperate or overly eager to fill the role. So I went against my rule, which is if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And do I beat myself up about that? No, because I think what it did was it reminded me that the things that we say are practical, like actually have practical implications. So, but also other people could see from me that even though I'm the head of people and culture, I'm allowed to make a mistake. I'm allowed to learn from that mistake. And I think it showed a really great example. It was a practical example of what does happen when you do make a mistake, and not listen to your guts. Yeah, I did. I've definitely made more than one.
Well, I think it's really interesting, right? Because a lot of organizations have blame cultures, and I think the fact that you were vulnerable enough to own it and actually speak openly about it,
Mm.
I think that says something about the psychological safety you have in the organization and the people you work with, and typically the organization you have. So, I think that's kudos to you and kudos to
Well,
the
thank
team.
you. Yes, we've just we do 2 surveys, vibe surveys every year, and we get asked different things of people. But every time we ask about the psychological safety and how they score us, and we've got more than 85% of our staff score us as extremely psychologically safe, and then we've got high and then medium. So we're really proud of that because it doesn't happen by accident. We work very hard at that and doing those things like I just did, where I went out there and admitted my error and talked about it and happily shared that, is just one of the ways that we do that. And we do it in, as we said, every decision we make is towards the betterment and the protection of the culture.
So, what do you think, in your experience, are the telltale signs that a company's culture is not aligned with its strategy? What are some of those early warning signals that people leaders should watch out for?
Well, I might actually say that the culture doesn't need to align with the strategy. The culture is part of the strategy. So that you don't do you don't create a strategy without consideration of the culture. And OzHarvest has part of our strategy is around our culture. So that is actually part of our work because how beautiful is it that we give 400 people and 3,000, like 400 employees and 3,000 volunteers the opportunity to have great work experiences every day. I mean, every day isn't perfect, but generally enjoy what they do, have an impact, work with great people. How special is that? So I would say that the strategy has to include the culture, not
I
work.
really like that. The way we do things, has to tie back to what are we trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
So, I couldn't agree more with you. In terms of your advice for other people leaders, navigating diverse personalities across the organization from exec to the front line, you've got quite an array of experience there. What advice would you have for those people leaders?
One piece of advice doesn't fit all. That's first of all. But what I think the most important advice is listen. Listen to your people. Don't make presumptions. I've been very guilty of that. I think that was my growth goal for 2022 was stop making presumptions. So rather than guessing, just ask the question and listen, and then work from that position of understanding what people what they need and what they want. We actually have got a bit practical around this as well. We've introduced a tool at OzHarvest called the HBDI. Many HR people will be aware of this tool. And it's a way of thinking,
Yes.
whole brain thinking tool. And that is giving us a really great understanding in how we work in teams and individually, understanding our preferences in the way that we solve problems and communicate. A really shared language that we've got through the organisation where people understand what type of brain they're dealing with, to look out for different brain types when you're putting a working group together so that you've got that diversity of thinking.
I really like it. And, you've got these tools, you're understanding, culture and strategy goes hand in hand. But how do you position your function, yourself, as a strategic partner beyond just that? While we're here as a service center, how do you get your senior leaders on board? How do you get your CEO, the founders on board? What's your
Mm.
approach?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And look, do we have it particularly like 100% right here? No, we still have some people that think that we're here to answer a question and do recruitment. And that is some of the work. That some of the work is that what we call always on. So that always on work where you're advising in the moment, you're helping with urgent recruitment, that sort of that transactional work. But it's that transactional work is when you're needed. And that when you're needed, that's when you build your relationships. So my advice to my team is to, while we do want to do more strategic work, the transactional work is really important because you are building relationships, trust, value, and credibility when you do that work with your leaders. Separately to that, though, it is putting in intentional time with your leaders to start understanding what they have in front of them. Call it getting ahead of the work so that we're not reacting, but we are being proactive. So what is your strategy on a page for the year? What are your goals for your people? What do you want to see them doing? How do you want this team to feel at the end of the year? Asking those forward-thinking questions really positions us in a way that makes us hopefully a valuable part of the team.
Well, this is probably my favorite answer so far because,
Oh,
I think starting off with the foundations, building trust, letting people know the competence within the department, within the team, to essentially now say, okay, well, where else can we help and can you let
mm,
us into? What a great way to think about it, because I think a lot of the time, HR goes the other way or tries to go and be transformational, but they haven't yet set those foundations down pat, the transactional stuff, the always on
mm,
aspects. I really have liked this answer. So final question for you.
mm.
If you could go back in time, what are the three pieces of advice you would have given your younger self in terms of HR, work, people, and culture?
Hmm. That's a great question. So I would think I would listen more. So I'm a late in life listener, so I should have been an early in life listener. But I did start my career last century where, you didn't collaborate so much. It was more command and control. So I've learned the value of listening and collaborating. Another piece of advice I would give is be kinder to yourself. This job is really hard sometimes, and we wear many hats. People think we're financial advisors, counselors, advisors of all types. And to be able to have some sort of boundaries and be kind to yourself around the work that you do, and always stop and celebrate what you've done because
Well,
it's,
we're celebrating you now, so
God,
that's
thank
fantastic. I
you.
love it.
It's very easy to get caught up in the work and just to continue to push on. And it's very important to stop, have a breath, breathe, smile, think about what you just did, the impact that you've made to somebody. When we have a new person come in and join us, we train them up and then we always like to film the first job offer that they do, because what a moment in time to have that first job offer and you are changing someone's life when you do that. So it's not just about the work. The work we do ripples through everything for
I
people.
think it's great, right? Because HR is so used to celebrating everybody else,
Yes.
and very rarely, and even through some of the process we've gone through recently, they don't like talking about themselves because they're not used to it. They're more than happy to celebrate someone else, but don't necessarily stop and celebrate each other. So I think that's a great piece of advice there.
Thank you, Rudy.